Welcome to the voice notes from the Organized Homeschool podcast, Blanca. I am thrilled to talk to you. So let's jump right in. You can kick things off with a quick introduction, whatever feels good to share, whatever you feel comfortable sharing, maybe a little bit about you, your background, if that feels relevant, a little bit about your homeschool, how many children, maybe what ages, maybe even a little bit about your why or your style. Feel free to pick what you tell me, and then we can keep going from there.
Erica, thanks for inviting me. I love this idea. This is so unique. At least I've never heard about it before. So this is really great. I'm happy to be here. So a little bit about me. I am a wife of 15 years, a mom of a 12-year-old and almost 13-year-old. I can't believe I'm about to have a teenager in my house, and an amazing 6-year-old girl. She's been reteaching me everything I thought I knew about being a mom in her 6 years of expertise, but she's been amazing. I love my kids. I do everything for them. We live in Texas, and we are going on our 8th year of homeschooling. So I can't believe we've been doing it for this long. In my mind, it kind of feels like year 2 or year 3. There's so much that I'm still learning, but I love to talk about homeschool. So we started homeschooling in 2019, exactly 1 year before the March 2020 public school exodus. So let me just kind of start there. I was working, I had gone to school, I have a degree in business, I have military experience, I had experience working in the public school system, the private school systems, a charter school, and even working at the college level at a nonprofit. So I was loving my job. I was being recruited for my dream job. I was being recruited to be a project manager, and I had wanted it so bad. It was right there. It was right at my reach. And when it came down to it, I just couldn't apply for the job. And I'm very driven by my faith. So I believe that I was called out of the workforce. And my son at the time was in 4K at a private school 4K. And my job, which I loved, I absolutely loved, was essentially paying for his private school tuition. So I ended up pulling him out when our department had budget cuts, and my position unfortunately was cut. So I ended up taking my son out, and we figured we would just kind of end the year with teaching him at home while I looked for a job. And it turned into not being able to find a job and having this idea of, what if I homeschooled? I have no idea where this idea came from. But I brought the idea up to my husband, and he immediately loved it. So we kind of just ran with it. And that fall, I started my son in kindergarten. And it was so fun. It was just him and I, and there was no co-ops, there was no groups, there was no kids doing anything during the day. It was just him and I, and we would go to the library. I would bring like a spiral notebook to Chick-fil-A, and I would have him spell words, and we would read a lot of books. We spent a lot of time together. We did a lot of crafts, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I sought out information from online forums, and the community was very small at the time. It was about 1 million families, but still considered small, and nobody was having the homeschool conversation at that time. So a little bit about our style and our why. So I am currently doing classical education at home. We have a great classical community that we're a part of. But I've done eclectic before. I've done Charlotte Mason. I would even say we've even done dabbled in unschooling. We've done some traditional stuff. Part of being on your homeschool journey is finding your style, and that could take some time. So we have landed on classical. And then my why, I wasn't really looking to homeschool. It became something that I had to learn to love and to be content in. And I'm very content in where we are, but our why is many, many reasons. I love the time with my family. I love the way that my character is being shaped by being home with my family and meeting their needs through education, through serving them in different ways. So not just in education, but in different ways. I get to disciple my children, and that is my biggest why. I get to disciple them at home. And this time is short, and I just love being able to spend their years with them, their most foundational years with them, and being a part of that. So when 2020 came around, we had been homeschooling for exactly 1 year. I had 1 year of experience under my belt of how to do school at home with your child, how to be at home with your child, and what to do. So when there was this mass exodus of public school, I started getting messages from mothers who were asking, how do you do this? What do I do? What curriculum are you using? It's the same questions I have been getting. March 2020 to now, they are the same questions I have been getting, and people wondering, how is this being done?
Okay, thank you for sharing all of this and kicking things off. I can relate to so many things you said. The first thing that's making me laugh a little bit is how your 6-year-old, is reteaching you everything you thought you knew as a mom. That's how I feel about my second. He's only 2, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna have to do this differently than the first. So the second children are, I don't even know how to describe them. They're the best, and they're also come to just humble you. But huge shout out for you for 8 years of homeschooling. That's awesome. And thank you for sharing your why and kind of what your homeschool looked like in the very beginning and where you're at now. Can we just start by going, can we continue by going even deeper into where you are now? So you mentioned classical education at home and you're a part of a group. Can you tell us more about what is classical education? And then what does that look like? What does just overall a typical day or a typical week look like for you within homeschooling?
Okay, yeah, so classical conversation. So the first 5 years of our homeschooling, we did an eclectic style. We did unit studies. We did some Charlotte Mason stuff. But I wanted to get ahead of my son, who was primarily the, school-age student at the time. And I was seeing that he was going to need more challenge. So classical conversations kind of fell on my lap. I had known that it was out there, but I didn't think it was anything we would be interested in. But I went to an information meeting and I was like, this is really good. I think this could be a really good tool because I keep discipleship at the center of our homeschooling. It was a God-centered community and curriculum. So classical education, it uses classical model, right? So it's a community and we support each other through memory work, critical thinking, Socratic dialogue, and the community comes together. So parents have to be on campus and we're guiding children through what is the grammar, the logic, and the rhetoric stages of learning. And everything is based around that. It's very sort of a education of old method, but a timeless method. And like I said, it's God-centered and everything is centered around that. So I've found that it's a really, really strong tool to integrate faith into what we're doing at home. It's a part of every conversation, from science to history to language, and the most recent rolled out math curriculum is very biblically sound and centered. So that's our classical education. As far as our day-to-day, I love that this podcast is called The Organized Homeschooler. I actually used to think I was a type A homeschool mom or just a, mom. But then I would do type B mom stuff. And I was like, why am I doing that? But apparently there's a third option. So it's a type C and I fit very well into the type C stuff. So what that means is I have to give myself some structure. If I don't, then I revert back to some bad habits that I have of not keeping organized. So to help me do that, I block schedule our days. So Mondays are our community day with our co-op. And then on Fridays, I actually run a art and enrichment co-op for elementary age students. So those two kind of take up those days and we learn a lot. We just have community, spend time. And then through the week is where the major block scheduling. My calendar is very colorful and there's little blocks everywhere, not including our extracurriculars. So my son takes piano. He's part of a military leadership program. So that takes time out of his week. And my daughter does tumbling and cheerleading. So apart from those extracurriculars, I will block out the times that we work on our subjects and making sure that we get to all of it. And there's a lot of grace there if I don't get to every block. But like I said, just for me being a type C, it's good to see those blocks and give me a guide to know what's coming or what I can do. Because if I don't have those things on the calendar for me, I could very easily just revert back to, we're not going to do anything today. And sometimes those days happen, according to what happens, right? You get thrown curveballs all the time. And the great thing about homeschooling is you have that flexibility to be able to do that. So the calendar, the block scheduling is there, but it's not, I know some people, take it as like, if it's there, we're doing it, absolutely, no skipping but I think I've just, in the almost 8 years that we've been homeschooling, learned to give myself a lot of grace. And it's really funny because even though we don't get to all the stuff all the time, just the little intentional time that we spend with our children goes such a long way. And I just love that about homeschooling.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing more about classical education. I know that there are folks out there that maybe have the same question I had of like, what is it? Or they're looking for something that is faith-centered and integrates the faith into everything, all the subjects, as well as has the community aspect. And it sounds really rigorous, to be honest, in terms of like the Socratic seminars and critical thinking and things like that. So I'm excited that you may have just opened someone's eyes to be able to like research and find a classical conversations group in their area, hopefully, if that sounds like something they would like. So I appreciate that so much. And we love a good calendar with color coding and block schedules. I love that. I want to dig a little bit more into the organization piece, and it's funny because I'm definitely type C also. Organization, it is, and also I meant to mention this before, I was a project manager and event manager. After working in schools, I transitioned to project management because I had to do that as a principal. And I actually worked in the network office of a school also, and was the director of leadership development. I'm like, this is so long ago. What was my role? And director of recruitment at some point too. I did a bunch of different roles, but all those things required good, strong quality project management. So I actually transitioned to a project management role. And so there's like things that I love and get super like organized type A on. And then there's things that are just like, I don't even know if there's a type Z. Like, I'm just a mess. So I guess I'm definitely a type C also, which I think is helpful for me sharing online because I like resonate with people who it's hard to organize, and I resonate with like the people who are like, yes, let's get organized. And I'm always like working at it, so it's not something that comes natural, and I can't, understand the hard parts of it too. That being said, can we like dig a little bit deeper into your organization with planning? What does your planning look like? Do you lesson plan with classical conversations? Is it more of like an open and go? What does that look like? And then also any organization around like materials and things like that you'd want to share. And yeah, you mentioned have co-op on Monday and you lead a co-op on Friday. So also, what, other than obviously the calendar is a huge system for you to stay organized, but are there any other things that you do to stay organized, like tasks management or things like that? Because you homeschool and you're running a co-op and anything else going on, just life too, right? I would love to hear that too.
Yeah, so the way our community works is part of what you get is you have access to parent practicums. You have access to the community. You have access to so many online resources to help you. But the great thing about our curriculum is they don't tell you this is step by step what you have to do. I like to think of it as a massive guide. And I like that because I'm not bound by this task I have to complete in order to get to the end. It's this massive guide, and what I like to think of it as, you get to pick whatever you do in it. So for example, cycle 2, week 1, we'll do Greek gods and goddesses or Greek mythology. And then, so we meet in community and we go over, this is the general information that we're going to talk about. This is what it could look like. These are the topics you could discuss at home. And then, so really is just, we gather to have this really wide overview of what we can do at home. And then you go home and you can do whatever you want with that information. You can do whatever you want with what we touched on community day and really make it your own. If you have littles and you were doing Greek gods and goddesses projects and crafts and reading books, then great, according to the level. If you've got an older one, for example, you've got like a writing assignment, yes, but The way that that looks to you and your home and your family and your schedule, that's completely up to you. So I really like the model of it being really this massive guide and then you make it your own. So I wouldn't say it's an open and go. Yes, you can do lesson plans. You can go as detailed as you want in a lesson plan, or you can unschool it within the model. I like that freedom and I like that flexibility. So I do tend to lesson plan, and because I am a tutor, which in our community we use the term tutor versus a teacher, because we believe that the primary teacher is a role or title belongs to the parent. So if I'm on campus and I'm tutoring the class, I'm kind of leading the class through what our week is going to look like. So yes, the parent can decide whatever it looks like. So we all will be in community discussing the same things at home, but what that looks like at home is completely up to you and your family. But yes, I really do love that this community provides the parent practicums. I'm actually going to a tutor practicum coming up. I've already done the parent practicum, coming up on the tutor practicum, and I'm going to a scope and sequence meeting, and then we'll have a couple other smaller meetings just that we decided on our own that aren't actually part or planned from the district or area level, just so we can all feel confident, feel ready. We share tips, we share ideas together. I've even had a mom we gathered at a homeschool gymnastics class, and I brought all my materials and she helped me organize when I first started in this particular curriculum. She helped me get organized because I didn't know what I was doing. So I always say moms are like the best resources. Like an experienced homeschool mom I've never ever in my almost 8 years have I been in a conversation with a homeschool mom who's been like, well, what are you going to do for me? You know, it's really like a homeschool mom will help you and she'll want to help you get through it. And I have been that mom, and I have had, thankfully, those other moms and mom friends who have helped me get organized. And so, yes, our community has those resources. As far as my other co-op, yes, I have it as a part of my calendar. It's part of the color coding, time blocked thing. I like to purge. This is one of the ways I stay organized. It's my love language to go into a space and purge out things that we're not using. And this is, true in my personal home, personal space, my pantry. Everybody gets it. Like, I love a good purge. And I think that's really important to stay organized, because you have to keep inventory of what you have so that, one, you're not wasting money on things that you already have or that are available. And so that is part of staying organized. I look through my materials, both for my homeschool and for my co-op, and purge and throw away what no longer serves us, what no longer is in good condition. I keep separate spaces. So I keep separate spaces for my co-op materials, and I keep separate spaces for our homeschool materials. And even then, our homeschool materials, my older son's stuff is separate from my daughter's so that he can have quick access and, again, just stay organized. And he's a little bit more independent, or he will be even more independent as he goes into middle school. So he will have his space. And I think that's important. As they get older, it gives them more accountability. It gives them more responsibility, that sense of independence. And because the age gap between my kids is so big, it's 6 years, I spend a lot more time with my younger one and give my older one the freedom. So he has his own space of stuff. And when I say space, I mean I have one big cabinet for most of my materials, and then I've got 2 smaller cabinets. So maybe that's another part of a conversation, but a dedicated space is great. Most of the homeschooling is done in a kitchen table, and you don't really need this huge space to stay organized. And yes, we've all seen the beautiful aesthetic spaces where they've got the bins and the labels, and that is great. I love that. I would walk into a space like that and be like, oh my gosh, this is beautiful. But it's not necessary. As long as you have dedicated spaces and really look at your space and you work with what you have and you're honest about what you need and what you don't need, you can homeschool and make any space work. I have had an entire office room, front room space where I used as a homeschool room, and I have also had just a cart. We lived in an apartment, a small apartment at one point, and I really only had room for a cart. And I just had my art materials, like a 3-tier cart. I had my art materials at the top. I had the books for my son at the bottom. So homeschooling can be done in any space, large or small. It really is just a matter of you understanding what you absolutely need. And then for my co-op, it is 24 weeks. So our curriculum is actually also 24 weeks. So I also based my co-op around the 24-week schedule so they can just coexist and everything can just kind of revolve around this 24-week time frame of where we're intensely working on school and both of our curriculums. So for my co-op, I plan 12 weeks at a time. So within that 12 weeks, I have lesson plans. I gather all the scriptures, the theme for the weeks, the theme for the semester, and then I make a list of all the materials that I'll need for our art projects or for our games. I do it all. I love to sit down and just write down everything that I would need for a long period of time, and that even is true for like my personal home, like all of the supplies I'll need for a meal for the week or the 2 weeks, and then that way I don't have to worry about it. So I do that within my co-op. I just plan 12 weeks at a time and just get it all so that you know what you're doing through the week. You're not scrambling to figure out what you need and go from there.
Okay, this is also good, and it sounds like the structure of classical conversations and being a tutor for classical conversations is really helpful, and I love the like customization for each family involved, so that's super, super cool. And then I'm obsessed with like purging is my love language. Yes, so good. And I think like you hit the nail on the head because it's hard to be organized when you have an overflow of things, right? Like one of the things I've talked about in the past is like you can't organize if you can't see everything. And to your point, you end up wasting a lot of money, there's a lot more stress, you waste time because you can't find stuff. Like so many challenges come, but if you can have the amount of things in each space that actually fit and not overflow or being stuffed, it's just so much easier in many different ways and better financially, right? Because you don't end up buying something that you actually had in the back of a drawer that you couldn't see. So good. I would love to kind of keep going off of one of the points you made around moms being the best resource and you supporting other moms and being grateful for the community of moms that you've had to be able to support you as you have gone through your homeschool journey. So I know you're leading a co-op and I know you all are in a community through classical conversations, but can you like just share over the course of your 8 years, like what has community looked like for both you and your kids? And if you had to do anything to, get this community. So was it that you couldn't find it and that's why you are leading this co-op? Did you start the co-op because you were looking for community? I'm just curious about what community looks like now, how you got there, what you had to do to have the community, the socialization opportunities that you have for your children, and then the support and community for you too.
Yeah, so like I mentioned at the beginning of our homeschool journey, it was just my son and I. We started in March of 2019, and there were no other families around who I knew that were doing homeschool. So the bulk of what I knew or who I talked to, and it wasn't as much, was from online forums of the homeschool community. And again, at that point, it was about 1 million families in the U.S. So I didn't start off with community, and I didn't know what I didn't know. So I didn't know yet that I would need, or the extent of how much I would need, community for myself and for my children. So I guess at the beginning I was okay with going solo. I didn't know any better. It wasn't a conversation that anybody was having, and I wasn't necessarily having any issues. I just had the one kindergartner, and I really didn't know what I didn't know. And then 2020 hit, and people were looking for community. Finally, there were kids who were available during the day, and finally people were looking for other homeschool families to connect with. And I was just like, oh my gosh, it's go time. Like, people want to hang out. And because I've always been very social, I have always been involved in school. I was always in sports and cheer and clubs, and so I've always been very social. And I guess up until that point with homeschooling, I didn't know that there was the option for community. So yeah, in 2020, people were looking for communities, and I found a community. It was like an outdoor group of homeschoolers. We would go on hikes, we would meet at creeks, or we would go on walks and just hang out. And we happened to be like-minded families. It was actually in a group called Wild and Free, based off a book that called The Wild and Free, and they have groups all over the world, I believe. And so I connected with one of those groups, I believe, through my sister-in-law, who then started homeschooling after I, preached to her the amazing things that homeschool brought. And yeah, so I committed to that group, and that was amazing because for a year we hadn't had anybody. We weren't hanging out with anybody really during the day other than maybe a library group. But again, it wasn't during the day necessarily. So I found this group, and we would meet up once a week and do outdoorsy things. And I loved for the first time being able to talk to other moms who were homeschooling, and we were giving each other advice, and not just on homeschooling curriculum, but just on life, on how to make bread, or conversations on behaviors, on what recipes we're making, or, things that we're struggling with. And having a group of other moms who know what you're going through I was like, wow, I love this so much. And I love the way that the leader ran the group. She was very intentional about having people be committed to the group. And honestly, at first I thought that was a little too much. I had been used to my freedoms. I had been used to nobody telling me what to do or where to go. And I just had options because I wanted them, or didn't. If I had it, it's because I wanted it. If I was going to be somewhere, it's because I wanted to be there, not because somebody was going to tell me to be there. So to be honest, I was a little annoyed with the accountability part of showing up to the group. But then I realized this keeps me accountable. This keeps me accountable to get outside, because otherwise introverted me could homeschool from the corner of my couch all day, every day, if it was up to me. That's what I always say. If it was up to me, really, I could just do this all at home and not interact with anybody. But she ran that group, making sure that we would show up and that we were going to be committed to the group. And then later on, I ended up appreciating that, because it was the same families, it was the same moms and kids, and then you build relationships. And I really started to appreciate that. I appreciated that it was optional, but we were building it and we were protecting the community by showing up. And so we ended up moving from where we were in 2022 down to where we are now, which is in Texas. And immediately I started looking for a Wild and Free group. We didn't know anybody in the area, so I figured I need to start connecting to people. I don't know anybody who's homeschooling. By 2022, a lot more people were homeschooling, so I knew that there would be more groups. And so I found a Wild and Free group, and same thing. She ran the group. You had to show up. You had to first come 3 times consistently, and you have to show up consistently. And if you're going to be out, let us know, why. And that might seem a little harsh and a little okay, well, they're dictating my time. But it's once you're in a community, you want to protect that. They become precious, right? Precious relationships that you want to protect and that you want to contribute to. And then when you need them, they're there for you because you show up. So I started off with that group, and eventually I found Classical Conversations, which is our, curriculum now. And same thing there. They run their groups there's a fee to be in, and we do life together. In our particular group, we do Bible studies together. We do field trips together. We do mom's night together. It's very important in homeschool. I highly, highly believe to have a community where you can be held accountable, because sometimes we do need that. Sometimes I very much need that. And our kids are being raised with like-minded friends, and we are discipling each other. Our community is very intentional about it being a discipleship community. So I love that about our community now. I have tried all types of communities. I have tried free groups with a fee, field trip groups, just playdate groups. I have tried my hand at so many kinds of groups and co-ops, specifically homeschool ones. And my opinion is that the groups with the fees have better, solid community. You're putting something into it. You're committing. It's a sign of commitment to put down some money or your time or your resources and committing that way. And then everybody else is kind of on the same page, and then we are committing to each other. And I have found so many times over that my group now, because we are in it monetarily and they are and I am, that we are saying, hey, we're committed to this group and let's be here for each other. And we do. We show up for each other. And I so appreciate that. So I have tried all kinds of groups. And I always say, if you cannot find a group, which, by the way, it is a little bit like dating. Nobody talks about this, but when you're finding a homeschool group, it is a little bit like dating. Like you have to, I visited so many groups and you kind of have to see if you connect with the people, see if you're like-minded, see if you are, do they share your values? And I think that's important as you're going through this, to have people who you can talk to and relate to who share your values, because it would be easily, I think, just to be discouraged doing such this big thing and then not having people who you can talk to and relate to. So it is a little bit like dating. It will take some time, even up to years, to find your group and find your people. And I always say, if you cannot find a group that checks all the boxes for you for whatever you're looking for, make your own group. You will find your people. Make your own group. If you want it to be different than what's available, you have the absolute freedom. You will find your people every single time. So my co-op started off a little different. It's actually not a co-op. I think it started off that way, and it's just kind of like a blanket term that people use when you have like a homeschool group, but it's definitely not a co-op anymore. But it started off at a church as a ministry of the church that we were attending at the time. But this year it'll start off for the first time as just a business, and kids come to my house and they get dropped off, and I have had anywhere or up to 8 kids at my house, and it is so fun. But I was not looking for community specifically because we had already had our community. However, other people were looking for ways to have their kids involved, because homeschool continues to just grow. And I was asked initially to start this co-op at the church, and because I had some knowledge on homeschool and I was kind of like the homeschool person, so I said, yes, absolutely. That's my heart. That's what I think my ministry is. But yeah, so it'll continue this year just as a business and having a space for the kids to come and do arts and crafts. And it's just a drop off from 9:30 to 12. And I love it. It absolutely fills my cup. My younger daughter has community. She's got 8 of her friends, 6, 7 of her friends coming over to the house on Fridays. And it really does fill our cup, our family's cup. So it's not that I was necessarily looking for community, but there was a gap that needed to be filled in our community for some homeschool students that were lacking community. So I was happy to step into that, and Whole Heart was born. And for what it's worth, I think I know that there is a stigma of like homeschoolers being antisocial and being awkward or weird. And I think a lot of that comes from the belief that we are isolated, the belief that we don't have good, solid community. And there are some homeschoolers that say, I don't want to do a co-op, or I don't want to be a part of it. They don't maybe appreciate the fees, or they don't appreciate maybe just what's available in their area. But I believe in community so much. I think especially because there's that stigma that we are antisocial, that, we're just weird, and there may or may not be some truth to that. But building a community, and I think having the world see how solid we can be and how supportive we can be, and encouraging the homeschool community can be within ourselves to each other, is so important. So I really think that just having a solid and building a solid homeschool community is a way to fight that stigma of homeschoolers being isolated and being awkward. And I think parents play a big part in that. Like if we just say no to finding people to connect with and doing the hard work of connection. It is hard work to connect. It is hard work to show up, and it's hard work to be consistent in your community. But I believe that you receive that back when you need it, because there will be a time in your homeschool journey where you need support and you need a solid community. So putting in that work into the community, I believe you'll get that right back.
Yep, I agree with you too. And one thing you said that I had never thought about is that, I just never heard anyone talk about this. So, and I was not homeschooling at this time, but I had not thought about the fact that prior to 2020, there wasn't like a lot of community, or there weren't as many people, I guess, like reaching out and looking for community. And then 2020 was like a big shift. And so that is so interesting how that happened for you. And I'm sure other people too. You hit the nail on the head with like the commitment piece and people who are leading communities for homeschoolers being very strict is the only word that comes to my mind right now. And I don't mean that in a harsh way, but like strict around how people engage and being committed and showing up, because that does matter and it does impact the community and it does impact the experience that people have. So I think that makes so much sense. I love the group that you're running. That's so cool. And your reason why you did it is admirable. So shout out to you for doing that. And of course, I know that you and your daughter are getting something out of it too. So that's so, so good. You mentioned to me that you had to kind of come out of the public school mindset. So I'd love to hear more about that. Like, how did you do that? How long did it take? Even advice you have for others to come out of that mindset? Because I think that that's so real. Most of us have gone to public school, and maybe some of us, our kids were in public school. So it can be hard to like come out of that. So what does that look like? And what did that look like for you?
Okay, so the public school system and coming out of the mindset. So, right, like you mentioned, it is a system and we were raised in it. So, it's everything we know. Most of us, a lot of the families knew weren't homeschooled. There were a million families before, but we don't meet a lot of them. We're just starting to really see what it looks like on this really large scale. So, yeah, we were raised in it. And I think that's why it's so hard for people to understand it and how it works and what it looks like, because we know one way. We were raised in one way. We saw our friends and our teachers and our principals way more than we saw our own family members. And we spent most of the year in the system. And the public school system dictates everything that we do. It dictates our parents' work schedules, what time things are open or closed. It dictates our time at home, our dinners at home, our schedules, calendars, holidays. The public school dictates when we can take a vacation together as a family or not. And we've created these weird loyalties with schools and even like the college, school systems, right? It's all based on the same calendar time. And it's really ingrained in our culture. And just the entire year runs on it. And because I've been out of it a long time, parents will come to me and it blows my mind when they say, well, I can't do this with my child, or I'm not allowed to do this on this day, or my child's teacher says I can't do this, or the school won't allow me to pull my child out for lunch, or I just want to spend a day with my child. It blows my mind because I've been on this side for such a long time, but I can understand where they're coming from, because when you're in the system, you don't see that it's a normal. You don't realize once you've lived in the freedom outside of the public school system that you can actually decide for yourself. You can actually make decisions for your own family, and you don't have to be accountable to anybody or ask anybody permission what you are or aren't allowed to do with your own family, with your own children. So there is this freedom that you come into that you kind of have to structure, because systems are good, not all systems are bad, and structure is good, not all structure is bad. And so you have to know how to do that outside of this very well ingrained system in us. So how long did it take to get out of that mindset? To be honest, there are still things that I have to think about or learn to undo that I learned within the time of being in the public school system, just how things are done, how work is done, how things are learned, what I can and cannot do in certain seasons, when I'm allowed to acknowledge something in a certain season or not, according to the school calendar. But it is still something I'm learning to come out of, even though I've been out. And my kids were never in the public school system, but I was. And that was 12 years of learning how to do life with everybody around me, because everybody was on the same page. So there are still things that I'm still needing to surrender in ways of in structuring my family, teaching my family. And I think that that'll be true for anybody. It'll take different times, however long it might take you to unlearn something that you've done. And every family does it different. There's no two families that, schedules look the same or that do their homeschooling the same. So, and learning at different times. Some people wholeheartedly just come out and go straight to unschooling. And some people come out and go into a traditional model, and then they'll kind of maybe go Charlotte Mason, and then, just kind of go eclectic or whatever model they choose until they end up unschooling. Everybody is going at their different pace and finding what works or doesn't work for their family. So that's the same. That's true also for the mindset and where you're at. Because sometimes I forget that not all homeschoolers are on the same page or on the same mindset. But that's the beauty of it, is that we can all do whatever fits our family. We can all choose what is normal for our family and live in that. And it won't look the same. Coming out of that mindset will look different for everybody. And it'll take some time. And I think coming into your own understanding of what it looks like for you. So, like grade levels, for example, grade levels is part of the public school system. It's not really how it looks like in real life. Some children might be at a certain grade level in math and more advanced in reading, or vice versa. And maybe my third grader is more advanced in math than a fifth grader. So, like the grade level system, once you realize that, like, hey, this is actually a part of the system structure, and this doesn't apply to my family, so I'm not going to follow that. And giving yourself permission and realizing that I'm not part of that system anymore, so I actually don't have to follow that because it does not apply to me. It does not apply to my child. And these titles and a lot of these things are great. They work great in the public school system, and I understand why they implement them. I've seen them. I was a registrar. I don't know if I mentioned that at the beginning. I was a registrar in the public school system. And I've seen how these work, and I understand the titles and keeping everybody kind of paced. But once you come out of that, you have freedom and permission to not use them. And I think it is common in the homeschool world to just say, I don't really know what grade my child is in. We don't do grades. Maybe some people do level or skill levels, but things like that, realizing what applies to my household and what doesn't. So some advice I have, and this is probably one of the most radical stances I have when talking to families who are choosing to homeschool coming out of the public school system, but it's very common in the homeschool world to do this. So if you're coming out of the public school system, if your children, especially if they're in the upper grades, 5th, 6th, middle school, and you decide to pull them out, I always advise take some time to quote unquote detox. So your family has been in this system for years, and this is all you know, and this is how you live. So once you come out, I recommend taking, it can be anywhere. If you take them out for the summer, don't do school, don't rush into getting into anything else. Take that summertime. But if you do it in the middle of the year, it could take anywhere from 6 weeks to, even not unheard of, to take up to a year to detox your family. And so when you're coming out of that system and you're coming into a new one, which is the family system, and you're relearning how to be a family day in and day out. You're with each other all day, every day. How are we working? What's new? What do we need to do? What helps us to function? What gives us structure? What doesn't? What works and what doesn't? Give some time before you go into structured learning to learn how to be a family system. And yes, giving yourself permission to learn how to be a family again. A lot of people have not spent more than 8 hours a day really together for years, and sometimes a decade. And so suddenly the families are all together. Suddenly the families are having to run a home together and learn from one another. I had a family talk to me once about a father was worried about the child not taking the mother serious when it came to the mother being the teacher, because they were going to pull their child out of public school. And part of my response to that was very grace-filled about understanding and helping them understand that for years, the child has viewed learning and authority comes from the school, comes from the school system. And that's where I do all of my learning. And all of the knowledge is there, and mom and dad do whatever they do at home, and mom probably doesn't know the answers to everything. And so there might be some awkwardness of mom now is the teacher. So I always advise take some time to build relationship, because building relationship before you teach someone is so important, right? They trust you. They trust that you're going to be there. Their trust is coming out of a place of love. And I'm not just doing this for a test score, or I'm not just doing this for the sake of instruction, or it's coming out of a relationship because I want you to be, a whole person. I want you to know and understand things and have wisdom and just be loved as a whole person. And that includes your mind. That includes your heart. Being discipled, if you have a faith background in it, but being discipled well from a place of love, because I'm looking at the whole story. I'm looking at the whole picture of who you are as a person. So taking time to build a relationship as a family is so important. And so I highly recommend like this detox time of coming out of that and just spending time together. And then give yourself grace, because every year, not just the first few years, and not just the first 6 weeks, every day of homeschooling, every new year, I've got to give myself a new grace and what I learned from the year before. And a lot of what you're going to be doing as your family chooses to homeschool, a lot of what us who came out of the public school system are going to do or be doing is unlearning. So we are going to have to unlearn a lot of the habits that we knew or learned around testing, about learning. Like sometimes it still blows my mind. I have an almost 13-year-old of how quickly he learns. In my mind, I'm like, okay, this is going to take a semester to get down, or this is going to take several tests to get down, or he has to put a certain amount of time for him to really understand the concept. And then actually he will fully understand the concept within 1 or 2 conversations. And it blows my mind still. And I still have to lay that thought down of, nope, this is going to take so much time to really grasp this concept. But because there's no distractions, there's no bells, there's no downtime, there's no lines, there's no, all the things that come with being in a building with, hundreds of other people and having an administration and having the system, they don't have that. And they can literally just, because they trust, there's a relationship there, I can teach, we can talk, we understand, and we keep it pushing. So yeah, there's going to be in the mindset change, there's going to be unlearning, reshaping a family, re-understanding of what education is about and how that applies to your home.
Listen, I always say that this whole thing we're living right now is made up. Like, there was a time when everything we are experiencing was not here. So, like, just because the majority of people subscribe to it does not mean that it is what we should have to do. And I get, like, we live in a capitalist society and all the reasons why, you have to send your kid to school and XYZ, all list of a billion other things that people have to do, air quotes, have to do. But at the same time, like, there's certain things that if you can find within your means to take control and experience the freedom, like, go for it, right? So I feel you on all of these things. Okay, I have 2 final questions. One, I don't have any smooth transition to. I just saw a recent post of yours about working out and getting results from working out, and I just want to know how. Like, you have 2 children, you homeschool, you're active on social media, like, you're leading co-ops, you're in co-ops. Like, tell me how you're staying organized for yourself and prioritizing yourself. I know there's other things that, like, obviously I don't know about that you do too. So balancing all the things and getting your time to work out. I have my workouts too. And, like, for me, I have to get them in because it just gives me so much energy and sets me up for a strong day. So I feel connected in that way, that, like, yes, we're getting our workouts in, but I want to hear from you. Like, how do you make that happen? And then if there's anything that we didn't get to talk about that you wanted to talk about, let me know now. Like, let's talk about that now too. And then I'll ask one final question after you share with me those 2 things.
Oh man, I wish we had so much time to talk about how everything is made up. I feel like I could just be there forever. But the working out part and kind of time for me, honestly, that is newer to me. I think it's really hard as moms first to do that, to take the time and there is like a kind of being selfish element to this. Like I have to say yes to myself and no to everything and everyone else for, 30 minutes to an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours sometimes, whatever your goal is, to get that done. Because yes, I'm involved and I love to be there for my community, my family. But if I want to be or show up well and strong and healthy, I have to take time for myself. And my husband is an amazing support for me. He makes sure that I am taking time for myself. And he was the one who, kind of encouraged me and helped me to see that, because I'm a mom and how moms are, we want to be available to our kids. We want to make sure that they don't have, or that they have everything that they need and they're nurtured and they're well cared for. I tend to just throw myself into that. And I'd done that for years. And unfortunately, my health kind of was put to the side. And so my husband was really good about like, take the time, like let the kids sort of fend for themselves for an hour, hour and a half. Like they will be fine. And my mom heart was like, no, but they need me. So I think just coming out of that lie that I was telling myself that like my children who are ages 6 and 12 and who are very capable of doing things for themselves, that they didn't need me at every minute of the day. And I could step away in our garage. My home gym is in the garage, and just get a 30-45 minute workout in. And then as that habit grew, it turned more. I like to take my time. So that's one of the bigger things, is just your children will be fine if they're, bring them with you, bring them with you on the walks, or while you're doing your little sets, get them kids sets, bring them with you on your journey, because they also need to watch you make healthy and good habits for your health, and they will model that in theirs. So saying yes to myself and saying no to my kids for a certain amount of time while I'll get that done was the biggest thing. And then the second thing is non-negotiable movement. I made sure I was a part of a challenge group at the beginning of the year, and part of that was 10,000 steps a day. And so I made time to get that walk in. And sometimes, yes, the dishes pile up, and sometimes, yes, the laundry piles up, but it's always going to anyway. So I might as well get my walk in. And in the winter, I bought a walking pad. I looked on Facebook Marketplace. I love a good Facebook Marketplace find. And this one was new in box walking pad for, I think I paid like $75 for it. And it was, I live in Texas. We had, this ice, snowstorms, and that's an absolute no for me, right? Like, and cold to me is just no. So I got the walking pad, I put it in front of my TV, and there's actually walking pad routines on YouTube. Who knew? So I got my 30 minutes or whatever I needed to get in, maybe once or twice a day, to complete my walk count. And the kids are playing around me. They're doing their schoolwork around me. If they have questions when we're doing a subject that doesn't require me to sit with them, they can ask me, or they can entertain themselves. Kids will be fine if they are bored. They will be absolutely fine if they don't have me, just available to them at every second. So mandatory know or get in your movement, and steps are great, but so is moving around the house. So is finding a project to do. So is finding outside yard work to do. Movement was non-negotiable for me. And I specifically changed my eating habits completely, unlearned some things about what I thought was good for my body, and I changed my eating habits. So find what works for you. I found that the thing that worked for me amazing didn't work for other people who had tried it. And so I decided, man, this is working for me great. I'm going to continue at it. I specifically did a carnivore diet. And so now I'm just kind of rotating that by season and eating whole foods and eating real food and nutritional food. And my kids eat the same thing while I'm eating it. They eat the same thing. And bringing your kids along with what you're doing is so helpful. It's encouraging. They ask you questions while you're doing it, and they watch you. And the hope is that they mimic those what you do at home. What they saw you do. My hope is that they say, yep, mom took a walk every day, or mom picked up some weights every day, and mom drank water, and mom ate whole foods, and this is how she prepared food. And that's my hope, is what they saw is what they do in life. And drinking 90 ounces of water minimum a day, and making sure they're drinking water. So I'm doing life anyway with them. I just wanted to make better choices. I knew that I could. I just knew that I needed to make better choices along the day. And yes, sometimes that means being a little quote unquote selfish and saying yes to yourself. And there are seasons. I understand there are seasons. I went through postpartum. I went through, we went through really hard financial seasons, and I couldn't say yes the way that I do to myself now. But there are always ways that you can, and give yourself grace if you're not in that season. And homeschooling, if you're just starting up, I've been doing this for almost 8 years, so I've got a routine, and I know where I can fit it in, and I know where I can get things done. So those are just some kind of things I did. And I think, Erica, if there's something that I wanted to talk about that maybe I didn't, when we talk about homeschool, or when we see homeschool content or what's put out there about homeschool, we tend to think about it as only the educational part, only the quote unquote subjects part of it, or what they're learning and how they're learning. But I come at it with the approach of, let's look at the whole person and not just what their grades are going to be, or what college they're going to go into, or what knowledge they're going to pick up, but as the child as a whole person. What is the best choice for the child as a whole person? Their interests, their gifts, their callings, their communities, not just what grade is my child going to make. And I think that's kind of what I want to show up on my platforms, my social media platform. I want to help people understand that this is just one part of a child or a person who will become an adult. This is just one part of their life. And there's a bigger picture to each person. And I think sometimes that even as adults, we feel like we don't know what our purpose is, or we don't know what fulfills us. And I think because we have so much identity in our work, or the things that we know, or who we were even in grade school. But we are so much more than this specific part of our life, or this work, or our career, or our title. And children are much more than the subjects that they learn and how they learn them. And I want people to know that homeschoolers should and tend to think about the child as a whole, and how do we nurture and build up this whole person. And I understand that there will be gaps, that everybody has gaps. Children in public school, homeschoolers, private schoolers, everybody has gaps, right? But in educational gaps is what we tend to talk about. But what about those other places? Not just the mind, but the heart, the soul, the body. I understand that physical education is a part, or is a conversation that we have a lot in the public school area. And I think even in the homeschool world, we have even co-ops who are coming up and doing PE co-ops, specifically PE co-ops. And that's part of why I like to work out, because it's part of my kids' getting their body movement. And my son does a military leadership program, and he has to do PT, and that's a really big part. So yeah, just looking at children as people and as whole people, and how do we address the whole person and not just the person who is going to make this grade, make this GPA so that they can get this school and this job.
And to the question about balancing it all, and yes, I'm involved in a couple co-ops, including my own, and just all the things I'm involved in. Somebody said it like this years ago, and I've taken it with me since, but you have to, you've got all of these spinning balls, and you have to figure out which ones are crystal and which ones are rubber, and which ones can you allow to drop and they'll bounce back, they'll be fine, and which ones are crystal, which ones are important that you got to keep up. You got to, they're precious. And to me, that's anything involving my family, my kids, my husband. Those to me are the crystal balls. So I am all the way involved in the things that include my family. And I will not let those balls drop. And anything else tends to be rubber, and just prioritizing what will come after my family, but they will always remain first. And I do think we kind of live in this, in my opinion, this myth that you have to balance all of these things. And I've just found that the more I try to balance all of the things that aren't serving myself or my family, the more exhausted I become. So I am very fulfilled and happy and rested in saying yes to the things that involve my family, and I put them at the highest priority, and everything else I'm going to say no to. It's just not my priority. And because I want to give my kids a rich life, and because I want my husband and I to have a great marriage, I will be saying no to things that just aren't serving me. So I don't balance anything outside of that, the scope of my family. It's really not, it's not in the picture really at all. So because I've just learned that it's very exhausting to try to include everything and everyone outside of this high priority thing that I hold. So I don't think that there's a secret to that. I think you just kind of got to get to that place of realizing what is priority and what is important. And this is what I'm going to focus on. And if other things or other people really want to be part of our lives, they're welcome. They can, see how they fit in, but I'm not going to balance anything and anyone outside of what is priority. Because when I was trying to balance, I found that what was actually happening was there were things being actually neglected, right? I'm one person, I have two hands, I can only be in one place at a time. So when my time was being put on an outside organization or something, my family was being neglected. They were being put on the back burner. My health was being put on the back burner. So I just don't believe in balance. I just think it's you either are choosing to focus on one thing or you're choosing to focus on another, and the other thing just kind of goes by the wayside. And I just think that's why we are so exhausted. We're burnt out. We are depleted, and I just didn't want to be there anymore. So I don't live in the idea that things have to be balanced. I chose one. I chose one crystal ball in my life, and that's the crystal ball of my family. And it's not depleting to me to be all the way involved in their life, and it's not exhausting to me, and I don't feel like I'm being pulled to all of these different places. Like, I'm all the way pulled inside of my family, and at the end of the day, if I am exhausted, and obviously naturally we are, if I am, I can rest in the fact that I chose them. I chose the most important thing that was to me, and it might be different for you or other people, but to me, like, choose what your crystal ball is and put your time and energy in there. I'm not saying that it's impossible to balance or to be pulled in different directions. And sometimes I understand people are working parents and they have to, have some time where they're focusing on work and then, get to the family later or what have you. But at least minimize the things that you are balancing or that you're being pulled in different directions for. And I think I have seen that as, like, the moms who, especially in homeschool, are getting, have been doing it much longer and more experienced. We've just chosen that it takes a lot of time, a lot of energy to homeschool. You've got the education of the children at the forefront of what you're doing, and that is a lot. It's an all-day thing. It's an all-day thing, honestly, to educate. It's really not just an hour if you really think about it. So maybe just try to minimize the things that you are saying yes to or being pulled into different directions. But yeah, as far as me personally, I don't balance. I just say yes to my amazing, precious crystal ball that I hold so dear. So that's how I kind of handle that.
Yeah, I think that because homeschooling is so, like, individualized for the children and the adults who are in the situation, right? Like, where homeschooling, you really get to determine your capacity, right? And capacity meaning, like, not like what you are capable, well, yeah, what you are capable of doing, but because of restraints like time and anything else that is a restraint for you that you either want to put on or not. And, like, I think that everybody gets to decide, if they want to take on more balls, right? I've heard that analogy before too. And I think it's spot on that there's just some balls that you don't ever want to drop. And there's some that you can drop for a season and pick back up. You can let them go forever and just roll away and never come back to the ones that you juggle. And so I think that makes so much sense. And it's really good advice, especially as someone who's feeling burnt out. I know that there's been points where I'm like, I think I'm saying yes to too many things. Like first, there's a lot you can do. You can put together better systems or structures and task manage your way out of things. But also there might get to a point where it's like you just have to take some things off your plate. You just have to drop a ball. And then dropping a ball sounds so bad. You just have to place it down nicely and pick it back up when you can later if you want to. And again, you may never want to. So good. I love your husband supporting you through being a little bit selfish. And I feel that because I'm like, I need this time. Like, I am going to work out since December. My goal has been to meet the challenge of the fitness studio I go to. Then I teach classes as well, but the goal is to take at least 12 a month. And like, if you do, you get a prize at the end of the year if you do that. And so I'm on track so far for 6 months. So I'm very proud of that. But like, kudos to you and shout out to you for prioritizing yourself, because we show up so much better. So I love that. And the beginning of the year challenge is right in my alley. So that's a good like pointer for anyone who needs a little bit of motivation. Like, just set a challenge for yourself or join a challenge, because those seem to help me anyways. All right. I'm so grateful we got to chat, and thank you for sharing everything you shared. Last thing is, please let us know. I know you've mentioned it throughout a little bit, but like, where can people get in touch with you? Let's like put it explicitly here. We'll put it in the show notes, of course. And if there's anything that you have going on or want people to look out for, this episode will come out probably mid-July-ish. So if that helps with any context of things that are happening, share that now.
Erica, thank you so much for the opportunity to come on here and chat with you. I've loved this. I've loved coming to know that this podcast exists. Thank you for building this community and putting this information out there. So love to be part of it. And I can be found on Instagram at blancalight.m, and happy to help in any way that I can. So best to you and your family and your listeners on the upcoming homeschool year.
Yes, thank you so much. Same to you. I definitely want to stay connected. I'm currently seeing all your social media posts. I say currently because you know how things change. Like, you'll be seeing people's things and then all of a sudden you're like, I haven't seen this person in a while and they've been posting. But we'll definitely stay connected on social media. Let's definitely, keep chatting. Maybe we'll do a part 2 at some point, like an update how things went this year type thing. That would be pretty cool. But I'd love to get to know you in this way through our chat, and I'm excited for everyone to listen to all of the gems that you dropped, all the knowledge and ideas and experience and advice, because I know that someone is going to need to hear it, and so I can't wait to get this out into the world. Thank you so much again, and I'm excited to stay in touch and chat soon. Bye.